Good afternoon. I'm Tracy Gray, and I'm a member of the Center for Technology and Disabilities here at the American Institutes for Research. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to join my colleagues, Mike Biermann, Marcy Keenis, and Judith Zorfus, and Elise Brand, to talk about our new Assistive Technology course, 101. This is an opportunity to meet the experts and to get an overview of what this learning series is all about. We here at the Center for Technology and Disabilities have been working to develop not only courses that will help you to increase your expertise and knowledge about assistive and instructional technologies, but also we have created a website that provides you with resources and information and research to come up to date on issues related to using technology to better educate and support students with disabilities. We work with our colleagues at FHI 360, the Pacer Center, and Adirondacks Accessibility to provide these resources. So what we're going to be doing today is looking at a very high level at our AT course 101 that's offered through the Learning Center on the CTD website. And you're going to have an opportunity to ask questions about assistive technology and the content of the course. Before I hand it over to our colleagues, I just want to point out that there's a chat box on the lower right-hand side of the screen. We encourage you to ask your questions, raise your hand, let your voice be known, and reach out to the experts that we have here today. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Michael Biermann, who is joining us with his colleague Marcy Keenis from George Mason University here in Washington, D.C. And then we're going to be hearing from Dr. Judith Zorfus, who is part of our Power Up What Works team, joining us from the Boston area. So Mike, take it away.
So I just wanted to open up with the fact that I've been in this field a long time, about 35 years. And as we entered the field all that time ago, much of the same motivation to work with students with disabilities, children with disabilities, is the same as it was then. I remember back in the early 80s when we were still working with Apple II Plus computers and Echo voice synthesizers and things like that, that one of my good friends, Mary Wild, who was a teacher in Prince William County at the time, had a preschool child by the name of Lee that was had cerebral palsy and was nonverbal and had lots of issues in terms of her education. And Mary was able to do some basic programming to offer Lee the opportunity to select words or spell words and select sentences and speak them through that Echo voice synthesizer. And what sort of got me is that the very first thing that she said was, well, it's about time. You know, and we think about assistive technology. Technology opens the doors to many people in many different areas with many different kinds of disabilities. We look at the activities of accessible instructional materials that are opening up not only the opportunity to learn and to read for children with vision impairments, but also children with learning disabilities who have the ability now to have books that are spoken to them, that they're able to use mobile devices, which means that they can get to their materials any place, anytime, and have the level of assistive technology assistance that they need to be able to thrive. And I'm just going to close with the fact that that little girl, Lee, is now an adult. She has a degree in computer science as an undergraduate and 2 master's degrees. When she was finishing up her undergraduate degree, she also had a minor in Latin. And when Mary asked her why she selected Latin, her response to Mary was, duh, it's an unspoken language. So technology is something that has evolved. It is moving forward and giving us many, many opportunities. And what you're going to see when you start to look at the different elements of the courses that Marcy and Judy are talking about is how it can open many of those doors and what we need to do to prepare professionals and parents and others to be able to be the most effective people to work with children and adults as possible. So with that, I'll turn it over to Marcy.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Marcy Kinish-Jerome, also from George Mason University. I think I just want to say as an introduction that the modules that you'll see today are based off of the work that we've done here at George Mason University in our online assistive technology master's and certificate program. So again, today is an introduction to things and for us to be able to answer questions for you. And then as you go through the course, you think of things, stories like Mike's that you want to share and things that you would like to ask questions about. There's going to be places for you to do that, and we're excited to be here today.
Judy, do you want to give us a brief introduction?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm sure you all recognize the saying, a rose by any other name is still a rose. Well, here's my version. A teacher by any other title is still a teacher. So many years ago, my first professional title was third grade teacher, and I was very proud of that title. Over the years, my title has changed several times as a special educator, a reading specialist at a school for the deaf, an editor for educational publishing, and most recently an educational researcher, and where I've been working on the Power Up What Works project. But no matter what my title has been, I remain in my heart and soul a teacher. I always sound like a teacher. The driving question behind all the work I've done, regardless of my title, has always been, how can this improve teaching and learning for every child, and especially those with disabilities? And that's going to be the underlying purpose of Lesson 4. The title of that lesson is Access to Learning Powered by Technology. Back to you, Tracy.
Thanks so much, Judy. Why don't we jump into our slides so you can get a sense of the 4 different sections, the 4 different lessons in the module. And let me just emphasize that we're launching the course today. The goal will be that on April 14th, at the same time as today, 3 to 4, you'll get another opportunity to talk with the experts, to ask them your questions, to drill down on the various topics that are discussed. But obviously, you can go at this course at your own pace, and we will be talking about where you can post your questions as you go along to make sure that this is an engaging and interactive experience. So Mike and Marcy, why don't you take it away with the overview of Lesson 1.
Sure. So as I said before, there are 4 lessons in this AT 101 module. The first lesson is going to give you the overview of assistive technology. So I've taken a few slides to kind of show you some of the different elements that are in the course that I think would be interactive and engaging for you. So you'll see in the slides, all the standard, there is a left-hand menu where you can navigate and get to the different topics. The right-hand side will show you the content, and then you can navigate forward and back. On this screen is an example of many of the elements where you'll hear narration on this lesson, excuse me, it's myself. You'll hear some content, but then you also will have elements to click in to explore more information. So this is just an example of some of the first assistive technologies. When you click on the eyeglasses, it will give you more information, and you can self-explore. When we go to the next slide, another thing that we thought was fun for the learning is some interactiveness. So this is an activity to sort the assistive technology. When I teach this class in classes at George Mason, we have a good discussion, a fun discussion about what is and what is not assistive technology and how would you categorize assistive technology. So this is, again, a fun game for you to play to kind of have that feel. On our next slide, we spent a lot of time in the lessons thinking about case studies. So in this module, you will be presented with 3 different cases, and we hope that these are kind of typical experiences you might find in your classroom, and thinking about their needs and identifying their needs and how we can match technology to each individual. So as you go through each case, you will see the case, and then you'll see how assistive technology can help. And when we did this, we tried to match it up to the particular needs of those students. So even though you might not be very familiar with assistive technology and all the different kinds, you can begin to see the connection of how technology can help. Okay? And then the last part of this module, we did an interactive quiz. And again, here we're using more cases and giving you scenarios and asking you to select the technology that you think would be effective for the student. In this case, the idea here is, again, if you don't know the assistive technology very well, you can kind of look at the context clues about how it's being used. And does that make sense? Would this individual with a learning disability need this visual support assistive technology? If you get answers wrong, it will give you feedback. If you get answers right, it will move you to the next question. Okay? So this is the first module, excuse me, first lesson. In the second lesson is about assistive technology and the IEP. In our courses, particularly in the courses that I teach, I have many teachers in my classroom, and I tell them, I really want you to be knowledgeable about what the AT law says, and I want to empower you as a teacher to be an advocate for your students. And when you're an advocate for your students, you want to do it responsibly. You want to know what you have the right to ask for as a teacher, what your students have the right for to ask as a student. So this lesson gives you some of that overview. The first few slides are going to talk about the law and what is required under IDEA, what are the rights of students and the rights of teachers, and we'll give you a chance to explore. So if you click on like LRE, the least restrictive environment, it will give you more information about what IDEA says about the least restrictive environment.
We find that a lot of teachers, in Virginia at least, there's a requirement that assistive technology be considered on every IEP. And often we are faced with people who don't really know very much about assistive technology. So this is an attempt to start to build a better understanding of what AT is, how it relates to the law, and more specifically, how it relates to the education of those children, so that we can just not check the box, we did consider assistive technology, but what assistive technologies did we consider, what did we select, what were they targeted, and how it relates to what the law requires.
And in my classes, I tell them by the time they have done well in the class, they will earn an A in my course if they understand that when they ask that question, should assistive technology be considered, what technology, the answer is yes. For every child, there is a yes. There is something that we can do. It is not just for our students with the most significant disabilities who could benefit from AT. So we can go to the next slide. Again, in this lesson, to make it a little more engaging, in my classes usually I do a pre-test, post-test fun activity, but just to do a little quiz for making sure you have the basic concepts about what the law says. I think, if we go to the next slide, the meat of this lesson is really, again, the idea about case studies, bringing in some more cases, and we use some examples of students with their IEPs, what their goals are, and how would we consider assistive technology. If we were the AT team, what are our roles and our responsibilities? So we go through in this lesson a consideration guide or consideration module in which you go through and decide if assistive technology is working. Great, let's leave it in the IEP. A lot of times maybe it's not, or there's new things for us to consider, and we have to figure out, well, how are we going to get that student that technology? What if we don't have enough information? Where can we as an assistive technology team get more information? So that's what this on the screen you're seeing, kind of the consideration process that will take you through.
So it's really sort of a flow chart that helps those teachers to make those decisions and understand what those decisions are. And what we're starting to see out in the field now is that there are starting to be apps and other kinds of software packages or online programs that support this kind of concept to help them not only understand what they need and identify the generics of what it is, but also be able to drill down to the specific types of technologies that may be able to be purchased or even gotten for free to apply to the needs of the children. So this is a roadmap that we are trying to provide and then give the more specific knowledge to people so that they can go out and try to find the answers.
Great. All right, next slide, please. Okay. Then the third lesson is about selecting tools to support students with special needs. This is a lesson really about selecting software and apps, and it's really about looking at user needs. So this is actually this is a favorite topic of mine. I've done a lot of work in this area. This whole thing kind of came from some work that I did with one of our graduates about looking at apps and how do we select an app for an individual with a disability. So in this I want to call it module, but in this lesson, there are two key components that I hope that you walk away with. One is about whether it's software or an app. It's still a tool, a game. There's a teacher perspective, and then there's a student perspective. So on the screen right now, you're seeing what I call the student features. That what do you need to consider for a student's needs? Is it that they need to have more visual reinforcement or auditory reinforcement, or do they need to have the questions repeated? Do they need online directions? What you think might be a good piece of software or a good app because it's fun or it teaches a good content may or may not work for an individual with a disability because it doesn't have their learning supports in it. On the flip side, from a teacher's perspective, a software game or an app would be most beneficial with content that you can modify for each individual users. Content, if you had a student, I had a student who, we did a typing game and he had to answer 25 questions correct in order to move on, and it frustrated him constantly. The kid with ADHD would get very, very angry and very, very upset. So every day we would do this typing app. He would do a line, and then I would do a line. He would do a line. It was exhausting, and there was no way to move beyond it. So for the teacher and for the student, that flexibility, that customization would be very, very important for success for this student. I think we have one more slide. Oh, nope. We are jumping to lesson 4. So we'll turn it over to Judy.
Hello, thank you. Great. So the goal of lesson 4 is to unpack the teaching process. And by that I mean understanding what it takes to ensure that students with disabilities are successful learners. So I want to give you a flavor of what you'll be learning and doing in lesson 4. I'm going to highlight 4 of the screens from the lesson. This first screen identifies 5 key elements critical for access to learning. I'm going to start at the top left and go around counterclockwise after I talk about the students. So I always like to begin with the overall learning context, and that's the grade or the size of the class or the content, the curriculum focus. And I was wondering if we could pause just a moment, if you could use the chat and just tell us something about your learning context. Maybe your grade, maybe the size of the class, maybe the curriculum focus. But if you could add something to chat, that would give us a chance to get to know you just as you're getting to know us and getting to know the lessons. So thank you in advance for those of you who are going to start typing something in the chat. Then looking at the very top, we think about the students. And we know that teachers need to balance both the abilities and the needs of their students, including those students with disabilities and those without. So again, think about or chat about what issues are your students facing? What's critical, and what is it that keeps you up at night? To answer the question, what do students need to know and to be able to do, we turn towards standards. And even more specifically, based on those standards, learning objectives. So in your school, your district, your state, are you guided by the Common Core standards or more guided by your state standards? What is it that guides you as you're developing your instruction for kids with and without disabilities? The next element in this graphic is the instructional process. And we're talking about instructional practices that are informed by research. We use the term evidence-based practices. So again, why don't you think about what strategies really work for your students? What do you know that you use that truly engages them, supports them, and allows them to be successful? Although I'm mentioning, next is the technology tools, and we're always thinking about technology tools, not just about the tools, but what's aligned to best practice. How can the tools be used to personalize instruction, to support differentiated learning, and to translate principles of universal design for learning into practice? And even though I'm mentioning assessment last, as we all know, it needs to be embedded throughout the instructional process. It has to be ongoing to improve teaching and learning. We designed Lesson 4 to bring these concepts to life, so you'll have an opportunity to visit a classroom by choosing an English language arts or a math case study. We'll go to the next slide. And this is following the pattern that you've been seeing in Lessons 1, 2, and 3. So you could choose either the math case study to explore that has to do with developing fluency, a very key foundational skill, or math, what it takes in terms of bringing peers together to learn from each other as they're engaging in learning about fractions. In each one of these case studies, you're going to see how the 5 elements I just described play out in the classroom. And then it'll be your chance. So if you go to the next slide, once you've had a chance to review these cases, then you can create your own case study. You can select, again, either English language arts, a summarizing case study, or math, understanding problems, or both. Don't just do one. You'll be in the driver's seat. To start you out, we'll describe a classroom context and the students with disabilities. Then you will be making decisions about which evidence-based practice would be most effective, which technology tool would best align to the practice, and how you would assess your students. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat now. We'll be happy to answer them. And so what do good teachers do at the end of a lesson? And if you remember, I said I'm a teacher at heart. Well, they summarize. And so this lesson is going to include a summary of the guiding principles, what teachers need to think about to ensure access to students with disabilities. And then, just like the other lessons, there'll be a quiz. Again, very interactive. I hope you'll use this lesson as well as all the others. You'll post your questions, your comments, and your reactions in the forum. We'd love to hear your own classroom examples, and we'll all be answering your questions and making connections between posts. So looking forward to connecting with you. Back to you, Tracy.
Thanks so much, Judy, and to Mike and Marcy. I think this gave you an overview of the course. Now, here's where you can find us. We encourage you to go to the site and go to the Learning Center. Here are the next steps for getting to the class. I want to emphasize that you need to register to take the class. That enables us to see who's taking the course and to be able to communicate directly with you. As I noted earlier, we will have AT 101 office hours on April 14th between 3 and 3:45, and that's Eastern Time, which we will be sure to emphasize. But as you're taking the class, if you have any questions or issues or concerns that arise, please feel free to contact us at ctd@fhi360.org. So we really look forward not only to your questions, but also the opportunity to get together again with you on April 14th. That will be the opportunity for us to identify challenges that you are facing in the field in working with students with special needs, students with disabilities, and also to basically create a community of practice or a community of learning where we can share ideas, share resources, share what we've learned, and really exchange ideas. So thank you, Anna Maria, for putting that link in the chat box. It looks like some more people are putting in some questions or issues. What I wanted to do is to flip it back to Mike, who started the conversation talking about the wonderful example of a student who might not have been able to be successful had she not gotten access to assistive technology tools. What about some other experiences that you've had in the field that underscore how assistive technology really can make a difference? And when you address that, Mike, we can look at some of the questions that are now coming up about how long it takes to go through the course. So Mike, do you want to just talk
Sure.
about?
Sure. I mean, I've got another good story about again, it's a young lady who has cerebral palsy, who actually used augmentative communication devices and came through our master's program and completed her doctorate in assistive technology here at George Mason. So she did her AT. She had an undergraduate degree in computer science, and she is Korean, so English is her second language on top of the difficulty that she has in speaking. She does have some speech, and she now is a faculty member and teaches in our coursework, both online and face-to-face, and uses her augmentative communication device as part of her teaching. Her name is Dr. Yusun Chung, and when Yusun came to us in the master's program, she was using a fairly rudimentary augmentative communication system, and we were able, through our work in assessment and identification of appropriate technologies, to find a very sophisticated augmentative communication system for her, which happened to be the same one that Dr. Stephen Hawking, the renowned physicist, uses himself. And if any of you have had an opportunity to take a look at the movie that just recently won an Oscar, you can go actually see how that whole process worked. And so Yusun used Words Plus as she was a student and through her graduate program and on into her graduate teaching. Words Plus is a relatively expensive system. I think it's $7,000 to $10,000 to, or it used to be. Maybe it's not anymore, but pretty expensive augmentative communication device that works with a portable laptop and such. And she would use it to prepare her lectures in advance, and was a great role model for all of our special ed students, not just the students in the assistive technology program. But as the technologies have evolved, what we have found is Yusun now mostly uses an app on her iPad.
$2.99 app.
$2.99. What is it, Speakeasy?
I think so, one of those. Yeah.
We think it's Speakeasy, but for most of her day-to-day communication, a lot of the work that she does, even in the lab and teaching with our students, where she can't have a lot of pre-prepared material, where she's responding on an individual basis, she uses a regular iPad with a $2.99 app for virtually all of her communication. Well, to me, I mean, it shows how the field has really converged. In other words, the different technologies have really come to a point of where most of it is now available for things that you can buy off the shelf and buy individual applications or individual software programs that work very well, and in a lot of different ways. We're also seeing that occur in the public schools, where our students now are, bringing their own device to school and using the apps that they may have things that work for them for word prediction. A lot of our students with learning disabilities now are actually able to go on, stream the books that they're, or the instructional materials that they are working with, and have access to them virtually any place. The trick really is to have families and professionals and people who can help them identify what it is that works best for them and help them get it. And once you give them their head, then they actually often take off on their own, are able to use these different technologies and find things that actually work better for them. And I think that this has been the way that I have seen the whole field evolve over the years. Early on, when we went to email systems and bulletin boards, I watched the population of students with hearing impairments, start to use more practical English rather than using American Sign Language and things, and just communicate within their own world, communicating with the world in general by using email and text messaging and other kinds of things. And many of those technologies have started to converge and to be more useful. How many of you know what a TTY is? It's a telegraph for people with hearing impairments, that they were expensive. You had to hook them up to your phone. They used, sounds, the modem sounds, the back and forth. Well, now those individuals just use text messaging. So there's many, many things that we see in the field that are solutions that are for everybody, not just people with disabilities. And I think that that's an important element to think about.
Yeah.
That's great, Mike. Marcy and then Judy, just a quick example. I think the examples are really so powerful to underscore how the field has evolved and the convergence of AT with our consumer products that are available today, whether it's through an app or a mobile device, is really quite astounding. Marcy?
I'm trying to think if I have an example. I think instead of an actual student example, some kind of cases and points I talk with my students is, with my students, I talk a lot with them about the need for technology, and that looking at, there's a lot of really cool stuff out there, and kind of making sure that when I'm working with them, that they remember the student first. So what is the student's need? What are we trying to help the student to do? And how can technology help them? And always making sure that's a match. Because I have students, when I teach them certain things in class, like, oh, here's this thing, word prediction. This looks really cool. And they think, okay, every student needs word prediction. I was like, no, because for some students, it's going to slow them down. It's not going to be effective for them. So who is the student it's going to help? It's going to help the student who needs help typing because maybe they have a physical disability, or maybe they have trouble with spelling. And so always bringing it back to that human connection, because that's what's going to make sure that you have that good match and that it works for the students. Because we've worked with many, one of the stories that I can tell you is that I've been out on many assessments. We've been called to schools, and you get to a school and teacher said, well, I tried that and it didn't work. And we start talking to the teacher, and we start talking, in the schools, and come to find out it was too hard. The teacher didn't know how to use the tool, or the teacher didn't get the buy-in. They didn't understand what the purpose of that tool was. They didn't understand how it was supposed to help the student. So part of our jobs is going in is really that human element, that human connection, getting that teacher to understand why it's important, showing her how it can help, and making it easy for her to use. We have found another teacher in the same school use the tool no problem, because she was a teacher who wasn't afraid of the new technology to go out and learn on her own. So it's understanding what drives people to try or not try things. And so for me, always it's that human element, that human connection to get people to want to use and understand why technology can help. I'll turn it over to Judy.
Okay, thank you. So I was thinking about an example where I had been meeting with a group of teachers, and they were talking about the fact that their kids were all bringing smartphones to school, and they wanted to use these productively instead of just saying, put your smartphones away, turn them off. And we were also talking about, at that time, we were talking about the strategies of summarizing. This was in the upper grades. And so altogether, we brainstormed so many different ideas about how, based on the need to learn about summarizing, based on the access to smartphones, some strategies that would use a smartphone for summarizing. So, for example, just listening to some podcasts that interest students, and then using that to summarize it so that you didn't always have to just read something and summarize. Taking some text that came maybe from a website that they were interested in, and then just highlighting key details and deleting all that extraneous information. Maybe a teacher sending students a little passage and asking them to send back via text or an email. What would you say would be a good heading for this? What would be a good title for this? Even just sending students photos or asking them to take photos or videos with their phones, and then to talk about what were some of the main ideas and details they even saw in that. And the list goes on. But it was that sense of what a best practice is and how could the technology really enhance that. And when teachers got excited about these kinds of ideas, they thought, well, I know for these students or this student, that would work. For this student, that would work. So they were immediately thinking about the technology in a classroom and how it could really help them to personalize instruction and yet still build the same core skills across the students.
That's great. Thank you. So the questions that are coming up are really very right on target, having to do with how many hours of professional development do we think the course will provide. We're estimating between 2 to 3 hours. It's on the upper end of 3 hours if you go through all of the resources that we've identified that align with the course. If not, if you go through the course, take the exam, and then do some of the resources, it probably should take you no more than 2 hours. But that's just a guess. What we'd really appreciate is hearing from you all about how long it did take you, since you will be the first ones to take the course. So that kind of information would really be of value to us. Ellen's asking if will the certificate indicate the number of hours? That's a great question, Ellen. And I think we'll be getting back to you on that. I think what we're going to do is test drive the course to get a sense of what the average number of hours are, and then we can indicate that on the certificate. Any other questions out there? It looks like we've got a really terrific group of people who bring such a wealth of experience and expertise.
Tracy, this is Marcy. If I could add something, I think one of the big benefits of this course and the way it's designed is the online forums and the chats that we've created to really give you an opportunity to ask questions of not just us as the quote-unquote experts, but of each other, because I learn most of the things I learn from the teachers that I work with. So the opportunity to not only get the information, which is true of a webinar, but in terms of a course, to get ideas and suggestions and brainstorm and bounce off of each other, things going on in your class. And that's where I'm excited when we come back for the second webinar. Really would love for you to say, I'm having this challenge, help me, what do you suggest? That gives us a way to have conversation and to kind of think through it together. So I really strongly encourage you to use that interactive element to get some ideas.
That's really such a great point. In one of our earlier webinars, I must say that all of us who were fortunate enough to participate came away from that discussion having learned a lot of new information and exciting information from all of you in the field. So I think we all know that the wisdom of the crowd and the lessons learned from our community really does help to strengthen all of us and all of our skills and our
Right, and I
knowledge.
just wanted to add that, the underlying purpose of all of these lessons within the course is to help people develop some ideas and some strategies and some plans and that they can then go and apply. So it's from, translating what you're learning into action. So in addition to feeling free to share your ideas and your learning, let us know if you tried something and how it worked. It's that kind of, cycle of learning and doing and learning that we'd really like to be able to encourage.
And just building off of that point, Judy, because that's really so important, if there are other resources or tools or materials that you come across as you're going through this course, if you would share those with us, we would really not only appreciate it, but we will add those to the course resources because certainly you all are on the ground and bring, again, a wealth of experience. So we would appreciate your identification of resources that you have found to be of value. It looks like our fearless leader, Jackie Hess, is typing. And so are there any other questions or issues? I add my thanks to Mike, Marcy, and Judy, and we look forward to meeting with you again on April 14th from 3 to 3:45, the same time, Eastern Time, to discuss the course and to get your thoughts and issues related to Assistive Technology 101. We'll be talking soon. Take care.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tracy.
Bye-bye, Tracy.
Bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye.